Hello again and welcome back to Illegally Cited. This is Jesse, aka BGFH, and I am back for March 2019 channel update video, and more importantly to talk about the 3rd annual Game Accessibility Conference, which I did attend yesterday and it was awesome, and I'm going to get to that in a little bit, but lots to talk about in today's video, so here we go. Lately I've started doing these kind of channel update videos once or twice a month, depending on what kind of craziness happens. But yeah, like I said, I met a whole bunch of people at the Game Accessibility Conference, or GAConf as it's more commonly referred to. And like I said, it was awesome meeting everybody there. I had some excellent conversations, some really fun conversations. If I met you there, it was great meeting you. If you found your way here because of one of my business cards, thanks for stopping by. Thanks to all the people who have subscribed and will be subscribing soon. We keep getting new subscribers at a pretty decent rate, actually. Like I said, the channel's doing far better than I ever thought it would when I started. We're just under 1,500 subscribers. A little over 10 away from that. We'll get there, I'm sure, very soon. But like I said, for anyone who is new to the channel, just a really quick overview. Illegally Cited is really devoted to game and technology accessibility for low vision and blind users. Everything that I record and upload here is put into playlists. So basically, the playlists area up here, you can find all kinds of different stuff. So even on like the recent videos we have, GameSpeak, that's just kind of a playlist where I take a look at accessible games via some of the smart speakers like Google Home and the Amazon Echo. We have accessible game spotlights for mobile, like iOS and PC. We've got some early access things. We have some VR content. We have low vision spotlights, which are basically me just taking a look at a regular old mainstream game and seeing how it works with low vision. Hardware reviews, a few Let's Plays, but not really too many. I do have, for VR accessibility, I do have an entire playlist dedicated to VR accessibility topics. Not even necessarily just blindness. Yes, there are a couple of videos regarding that, but I do have several other videos in that playlist just about various aspects of VR accessibility. And then I also have VR games and VR apps or VR experiences split into their own things, because not everything in virtual reality has to be gaming related, and there are some actually pretty fantastic non-gaming related content or non-gaming related apps. So I try to take a look at a little bit of both. But yeah, everything is from a blindness, low vision point of view. Try to look at how accessible things are, where things could improve, that kind of a thing. And then I have also a couple of playlists for recognizing games that are either accidentally accessible, like, oh, we designed it a certain way, but because of this, it just so happens to work well with assistive technology or for blind users or whatever. And then I also want to recognize games that actually go out of their way, especially like in recent months. There's been several of these titles, and with more to come, games that actually are actively promoting and actively pursuing accessibility features in their games. So there is a inclusive, I'm trying to remember what I even called the playlist. Inclusive game spotlight videos. These are games, like I said, that have really, from the start, things like Shadow of the Tomb Raider, Celeste, just to name a couple, but go in there and you'll find a few of those in there already, and with more to come. Crackdown 3, a recent one that I played. So yeah, a lot of content here. I hope you find something that you find entertaining or helpful or both. And thanks for viewing. Thanks for subscribing. And yeah, with that, that's just kind of a quick channel update. I do update at the very least Wednesdays and Saturdays. There is a twice a week schedule for sure. And for things, leading up to GAConf, I was just kind of in the spirit of, hey, game accessibility, and some cool stuff was happening. So I'm like, you know what? Let's just, put a video out on Friday. We'll put a video out on Monday while I'm sitting in the conference. You guys can be watching an accessible game video. So Wednesdays and Saturdays for sure. But yeah, I've been known to put a bonus video or two in there. Couple Let's Plays, but I don't really do too many of those. But occasionally. So that's just kind of an overview of Illegally Cited, the YouTube channel. So, man, there's just so many things. I haven't even had a chance to look at Google's announcement. I know there was supposed to be a GDC announcement today. Google announcing their some kind of a gaming announcement. People are thinking it's going to be some cloud thing. For Wednesday's video, I really wanted to have something out for GAConf, so it's just been insane. I haven't even gotten to look at that, so that might be a topic for another video. But, there's been all kinds of games that have come out that I haven't even had time to look at them yet, or buy them, or play them. I would like to check out The Division 2. That's got some accessibility stuff built into it. There was another recent one I think that had some some text-to-speech menus in it too. That's just I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. I know Crackdown 3 did, and I took a look at that on the channel. But I want to say besides The Division 2, there might have been one more. I don't remember, but like I said, there's all kinds of games. I wouldn't mind taking a look at the new Devil May Cry game. I don't know when that's going to happen. There's not enough time in the day. But yeah, I mean, it's only March, and there's been a lot of games that have started to include some more accessibility features, especially text-to-speech, which I'm very interested in. So yeah, there's definitely going to be more accessibility stuff coming soon. More games. There's some already out. There's some coming. Oh, I know the other one that I wanted to look at. I'm in the process, right before I went down to GAConf this last weekend, there was a project I heard about through my YouTube feed, and I might have heard about it at some point in the past, but just forgot, or maybe it wasn't just ready, so I didn't look at it, or it wasn't out, so I couldn't try it. There is this original Doom mod. Yeah, believe it or not, you guys know how much I love Doom on this channel. There's actually a mod called the Toby Accessibility mod, and this is actually a mod that was designed. Somebody made a documentary about this guy named Toby who, he plays games. He's totally blind. And one of the games that they mentioned in the documentary was that he liked to play Doom. He liked the music and the sounds and, just shooting dudes, shooting demons. And you know what? Yeah, you're right, man. It's fun. Doom is awesome. And the music, yes, the music is awesome. Even the old school music is great. But there's developers that, you know what? I'm going to make actually a mod and kind of dedicate it to this guy. So right now, as it stands, it's not really fully complete yet. But there is a mod called the Toby Accessibility mod for Doom. And it's in basically there's two pieces of it. There's he made a custom map for Toby to play in and us to play in. But the other part of it, he's added more accessibility, more audio cues to the game. So when you're walking around, you can kind of know that there's something in front of you. Okay, there's a door, there's some armor, there's some health or some ammo or something like that. If you run into a wall, there's more of a thud so that you know that. If you end up walking through a poison thing, there's that. And I didn't have much time. By the time I found out about this video, I was packing and getting ready for the trip, and I didn't have a whole lot of time to figure it out. I did download the mod, and I kind of got it to work, but not fully, so I haven't been able to cover it yet. And I left a comment on the guy's video, and he did reply to me, thankfully. He was very helpful. I believe his name is Alan, I think. I'm sorry if I forgot your name. And I'm trying to see if I can connect with him outside of just YouTube comments, because I do have a few other questions for him. And, like I said, I love Doom. It's like one of my favorite, if not my favorite games ever. And I would love to work with him because I have some questions and some additional ideas. Doom is over 25 years old now, and I still play it regularly. I just played Brutal Doom on Twit or on Mixer not very long ago, if I recall. So yeah, I mean, this is still a game that a lot of people still love, a lot of people still play. And if this mod can help blind players actually play the real thing. I mean, I know there was this Shades of Doom thing many, many years ago, which I have tried, but it just wasn't the same, man. But, if somebody can play, like, right now, the problem is what I learned was some of the audio cues worked, and some of them didn't in the regular Doom maps. So, like, if I loaded up, the shareware episode and went to E1M1, I could hear a few of the sound effects would work, but mainly the ones that didn't were like the Doors ones. And so those are extremely important. I actually did try to briefly play the first level thinking, oh, I know the first level, like, the back of my hand. I could navigate through that without vision. As it turns out, not so much, because you do need some point of reference. You do need a little bit of just helpful cues to be like, okay, if I turned a little bit too far, and then I ended up facing exactly the wrong way, or if I had to kill a guy and he kept weaving around, and then by the time I killed him, like, what direction am I actually facing? So having a few more of these audio cues and things, this is definitely something I'm going to try to pursue, so that I can not only cover it on the channel, but like I said, help get this timeless, just super fun classic game to where blind people can play it as well. So that happened right before GAConf. And let me get a quick drink here. And then we'll talk about the conference and my experience with it. Before I go any further, I'm going to be mentioning some names here, and there's just so many people that I met, that I chatted with. I know inevitably I'm going to forget somebody, so if I talk to you and I forgot you, if I forgot your name or I didn't mention you, I totally apologize. I'm still processing the day from yesterday, so I didn't intentionally leave you out. There's just so much that happened. So, the Game Accessibility Conference is in San Francisco. It was held at the Children's Creativity Museum. And I was invited by Ian Hamilton. If you're into game accessibility and you don't follow Ian Hamilton on Twitter, what are you doing? If you don't follow Ian Hamilton, give him a follow. Just look him up on Twitter. He posts his own articles. He posts his own stuff. But he really, like, especially once, if he gets to know you and, like, he's just really all over the place with game accessibility and promoting it. And, like, if a developer asks, like, oh, I'm having a question, or a reporter says, I would like to do an article about, blind accessibility, or, about mobility and blah, blah, blah. It'd be like, Ian's just like, oh, well, CC this, and that person. And I've made so many connections just via Twitter that way. Like somebody will ask something and he'll be like, "Oh, men, oh, go talk to these guys," and I'll be listed in there. And it's like, yeah, follow Ian Hamilton because like he is. We're still in debate. We haven't come up with a name for him. I don't know if like he's Yoda or like just he's the man. Ian's the man. He's awesome. But so I got invited to be a presenter, as you know from my previous videos, possibly. But he invited me to be a panel for this year because they wanted to do a panel session on low vision accessibility. So every year, this being the third conference, at least in North America, because they started one in Europe last year. But every GAConf, basically what they try to do, they have a panel of a certain type of accessibility or a certain group. And, because this is geared toward developers. And they want to have a panel that, that you're hearing from gamers. Oh, it's not just a bunch of stats. It's not just hearsay. It's not just, oh, this is what we think would work. This is, this year it was myself and two other people. And we talked, frankly about like, these are some things that work well and are difficult for us as low vision gamers, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So like I said, the conference, it was held in San Francisco. So that was my first time going to San Francisco. It was a pretty cool deal. The weather was nice. The flight there and back were both pretty good. Both were on time and really had no problems at all. I even got super lucky. I went to the line to go board the plane on my way back, and they were in that flight. They were super awesome, and they're like, "Oh yeah, well, oh, this is your seat, but we have this other one. So like, here, let me just give you a complimentary upgrade to the Comfort Plus seat." And it just so happened I got really lucky because there was nobody in the middle seat next to me. I was in the aisle seat, and so I had all kinds of nice room on the way back. And let me tell you, I've mentioned how flying is annoying before. You got the security stuff, they cram you into the plane, all that kind of stuff. But like, if everyone would just if the airlines would just treat people with some common dignity, like the Comfort Plus, man, that makes all the world of difference. I didn't have my knees in someone else's back. I could actually get comfortable. I wasn't cramped with my knees. Like I said, I could even stretch them out a little bit. It was just so much better, but like the way if you're a taller person and you sit in coach, it's not always the funnest thing. So yeah, I got to experience that, and it's kind of worth it. It was nice. It was really nice. So yeah, the travel went well. I actually got to meet up with a friend of mine. If you follow me on Twitter at BGFH79, I retweet a lot of things from Joe Steinkamp, Ranger Station, as he is known on the Twitterverse and elsewhere. He, in part, does the Blind Bargains podcast, which I've been on as a guest a couple of times so far. You may have heard us talk about things. But yeah, he actually stayed at the same hotel I did, and so we got to meet up there and hang out a bit. And man, let me tell you, this hotel was really interesting. I knew it was going to be kind of an older style when I booked the thing. But wow, I wasn't quite prepared. Like for my first impression was like, oh wow, what did I get myself into? If you look it up, there's a hotel in San Francisco called the Edwardian Hotel, and it's a nice place. I don't really have any issues with it. But like I said, I got out of my, I got off the plane, took a lift to the hotel, and we stopped in front of it, and he's like, "Is this it? Are you sure?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Can you read the sign?" He's like, "I think this is." So I went in there, and you had to be buzzed in. It was basically this. It was a kind of a narrow but tall building, but that was, I don't know if it was like 1920s, 1930s, but it was like all really old fashioned, old style. Like I said, they buzz you in, they let you in, and the checking counter is just to the right. But it's basically, I don't even know what you would call this. It's some kind of like a, I don't even know what the building you would call the building, but it was just like you had a couple rooms on each floor, and they actually had keys, not key cards, but old fashioned keys, not only for your room, but a big key for the front door to even get into the hotel. It was almost like a guest house from like the 1930s, complete with, they even had this like old school like elevator, which was, in my opinion, kind of a mix between like a basic dumbwaiter and a freight elevator. You would hit the button, it would come down, you would pull this ginormous door open, and then you'd have to slide these gratings open. You physically had to slide them open, step down into the elevator, and then hit the button to go up. And then you would do the same thing when you get to your floor. You'd slide the fence thing open, and then open this ginormous door. I mean, it was old school, man. I mean, it was a trip. I mean, the rooms themselves were nice, though. The beds were actually really comfy. They just had showers in the bathrooms. I mean, the rooms themselves, I had no problem with them. They were fine. But it was just the whole, like, once you kind of got over oh, wow, this is a different hotel experience than I thought I would have. Once you got past, like, I don't know if rustic is the right word or retro is the right word, but once you got past that and like, oh, this isn't your conventional hotel, it was kind of nice. It was kind of cool. The staff were really friendly. The staff were great. I have no complaints there. They were excellent. But yeah, so that's kind of the stuff around it. So Sunday, when I got there, Sunday afternoon, got to the hotel, and I had a little bit of time to kill. So I thought, oh, you know what? I'm going to try, because I don't have much time to do anything else. Tried some Uber Eats just for the first time to try it. That worked really well. Got me some Popeyes chicken. Good stuff. And then my friend and I, we met up and we headed over to the Children's Creativity Museum, because we want to do kind of a dry run through of like, let's see where the venue is, how to get there, explore the place a little bit so we know where to go for the actual conference on Monday. So we take a ride over there. And we got an email earlier that weekend saying, yeah, by the way, there was some construction going on that was supposed to have been finished, but it isn't. So here's some ways to kind of get around and get to the building. We ended up getting a little bit lost. And it's funny because the GAConf conference is right next to the Game Developers Conference, the GDC show that's happening this week as well. And they do that on purpose, because if you have a whole bunch of game developers going to a game development conference, if you can convince some of them to stop over for one day and attend some sessions on game accessibility, that's great. I mean, there's incentive to do so, because it's literally like a building or two down at the same exact time. It's at the same week, the same time. And it's only going to benefit them later, because if they go to our conference and then they bring that back to GDC, they bring that back to their games, they're only going to increase their user base. They're only going to attract more customers, more gamers to their games. So, in trying to find where we were supposed to go, we did sneak into basically by the registration for the Game Developers Conference. So we did get to go to the Moscone Center. I have seen it. I have been in it for about 5 minutes, but I didn't get past that because there was guards and such. But we can say we were in the GDC building, even though it was just a tiny, tiny bit. But we met a couple people that were really helpful, eventually figured it out. We met Ian and a couple of the other staff there as they were just kind of setting things up and getting used to things, and that was it was fun just meeting up with a few people that trickled in and having a fun conversation. And it's like I said, a lot of the fun in the last couple of days was just meeting so many people that I've communicated with via email or Twitter or some other comment system on YouTube or something. Just people that I've known by their Twitter name or by, just like I said, knowing them online. Like, oh, hey, good meeting you in real life. So we had fun there. And then after they kind of booted us out for the night there, a few of us, there was a couple of people that were on me and another guy from the panel that we were on Monday. We went, Ranger and a couple of guys from Microsoft and Turn 10 and Ubisoft and Cherry was there. If you follow me, I've tweeted a lot of her tweets. She's also really promoting game accessibility. She's had her own session. You can watch her session from last year's game accessibility conference, which is really good. But yeah, I mean, a bunch of us, we went to a pub, which coincidentally was on St. Paddy's Day. So, hey, you know what? We were out drinking on St. Patrick's Day. Heck yeah. And it was really fun, although like there was this guy playing acoustic guitar and singing in that, and it was fun, but it was kind of unfortunate because like it was so hard to hear each other that, the music was all right overall. But, it was kind of difficult to talk for most of the time because you just couldn't hear yourself. But it was great hanging out with those guys. Went back to the hotel, and so Monday morning we went to GAConf, and it was just a fun day. We got there around 8 o'clock, and just kind of give you an idea of like what kind of things they talked about. There's sessions from about 9 o'clock until 6 o'clock with a couple of breaks and lunch in between. So the other thing before I talk about the sessions, the other thing that I told Ian this too, the thing that I really liked about GAConf is, I've been to CSUN, I've been to ATIA, I've been to the NFB conference, ACB conference. The thing that I liked about GAConf is that not necessarily that it's a one-day conference, but everything is in one big auditorium. And this is a big auditorium. There was a lot of people there. I'm really impressed with the with the turnout of it. For most of the day, the seating seemed pretty packed. So there was actually a lot of interest in game accessibility. Yay! But what I loved about it is that all the sessions were in that one room, and they were all just, in an order. It wasn't like the other conventions I mentioned because I didn't have to choose. I didn't have to a lot of the problems with the other conferences, you get all these sessions that are booked at the same times. And oftentimes there's like 2 to 3, even 4 sessions in the same hour. You're like, God, I want to go to all of these, all of them. And you can only make it to one, and hopefully you're with a group and you can kind of, divide and conquer. But that's what I loved. It's like I didn't have to miss a single session because it was all in the same venue and all in the same room. Sat in the same seat the whole day. So we started out with kind of your welcome and just kind of getting started. And then the year in review for 2018, that was by Ian. And, again, just going back, you go back and watch videos from the first GAConf. And the tone of it, there was still kind of like an introductory thing, like, this is why accessibility is important, blah, blah, blah. And, just what kind of things they touched on for like, oh, this is where accessibility is then. And you go to what it is now at the end of 2018, early 2019, and it's actually significantly different and significantly better than it was even in 2015. So that's awesome. That's fantastic. So that was kind of, all the sessions were a half an hour long with the exception of our panel because we had 3 people. So that was a little bit longer. It was like 40 minutes. Okay, then we got into Forza accessibility. That was a great presentation just on like, okay, how did they get started? They started with Forza 1 on the original Xbox where it was just, everyone found it to be really hard, or a lot of people found it to be really hard because, you go back then, they didn't have the racing line. They didn't have any of the assists. Like, this was a hardcore simulation game. And if you didn't play it the way that you were supposed to, I mean, you were going to just crash and burn every single time. I remember renting it and I tried it. I'm like, no, this game isn't for me. I didn't get into Forza really until Forza 3. Forza 3 was the first one that said, this could actually work. Like some of these assists and things, and the driving line that kind of tells you when, how to take, where you should be and when to speed up, slow down. I've covered Forza 7 and Forza Motorsport, or Forza Horizon series on the channel. Go check those out. But it was just a really good, really kind of fascinating history of the Forza games and kind of how it generally, not just for the general market, like how do we make just more people in general play it, but then, okay, we're actually starting to think about disability accessibility. And, I can't really say anything because we're not quite sure where it's going to, when and how it's going to happen yet, but could be some really interesting things as far as low vision accessibility and even maybe blind accessibility for this series before too long. I don't know when, but I'm thinking it's going to be a possibility sooner than you probably think. So the Forza session was great. Then we had, let's see, did I skip one? Okay, no, break. So then we had a little break. I'm just looking at the GAConf schedule because I don't want to miss anything. I don't want to leave anybody out because they were all just so good. Developing accessible player experiences. So this was one through Able Gamers, and they talked about the player panels because they were, because you're talking to a bunch of developers and they're like, okay, this accessibility stuff is great, but, we don't know about this stuff yet. How can we get the experts? And it's like, get people, don't just assume, get the input from the actual, people with disabilities playing these games. And that's where the Able Gamers player panels come in. I've participated in a couple of those so far, and you can sign up for those too. It's free. Just go to ablegamers.com or look for Able Gamers player panels, and you can find out. Basically, you fill out you fill out kind of a questionnaire or a survey thing, and you kind of get, you kind of gives them an idea of, okay, this is what my disability is. This is what. Not necessarily my disability, but this is what I have trouble with in games. It could be motor, it could be like, timing things. It could be repeated button presses. It could be a visual thing or not being able to hear, or sensory overload. It could be any number of things. But what'll happen then is once you fill that stuff out, they will try to, when something comes up, when a developer contacts them, they will kind of try to match what that developer is asking for with the group of people. And so they'll match you to like, we think this would be relevant to say, this developer is wondering about vision impairments. Like, how can they make their game more blind or low vision accessible? Okay, well, you meet these criteria. They would like to talk to you. And so they get you in connection with them. And it's been great. And I'd love to see that happen even more. But yeah, just having the developers know that like these resources are there. And the other main thing that was really a theme throughout the day, and you've heard it before too, I'm sure, is that, not only consult early and often with the gamers themselves, but if you're a developer, just to basically provide options. Don't just assume, oh, well, if I do this one thing, this will basically this will fix it. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Or maybe you need some sort of, it's not just an on and off, but you need a granular scale. So instead of just turning something on and off, you can have a slider to say, oh, okay, well, maybe only make it, if let's say you're getting rid of the background layer so it's easier to see. Instead of just turning it on and off, you still want to keep the background a little bit so you still have the atmosphere of the game, but you want to have a slider to say, okay, maybe make it 30% as bright so you still get some of that effect, but you still also make it accessible. So, more options, the better. Having things in multiple, ways. Have it large print, have it captioned, have it spoken aloud. All those types of different things. So the next session, let's see. Oh, yes. Finding the sweet spot. Yes. Okay. I remember this one. Yep. So between boredom and overwhelmed. And this was kind of an interesting one. So people, basically, I'm trying to remember the word that she used. I can't remember the exact word that she used. But some people not just some people, but designing a game so that you can, again, customize that ties into our overall theme here. Having games offer options to suit different play styles or needs. Like if somebody is, they're bright and awake in the morning, they're sharp and they're good, then you can have a little bit more, maybe the game can be a little more demanding, or you can have more of the bells and whistles, some of the flashes and, whiz bang effects and things like that. But, you get home from a long day at work and you just want to chill. You don't want to be frustrated because you failed the same thing over and over and over. Or if you have, like I said, if you're really, sensitive to different stimulus, be it audio or visual or, just a lot of different things happening at the same time, some of that can actually be really debilitating for some people. And, it was just a really interesting talk about going from one side of the spectrum to the other of wow, how can we can still make a game that can actually work for all those types of use cases, but, you can still address all of those needs, and you don't necessarily have to, again, one of the common misconceptions is that, you design for accessibility, well, therefore you lessen your game's vision. I want it to be this way, but it's, it's not. If I do it this way, well, then the game won't be what I wanted it to be. There are still ways to do that. So the session was it's a little harder to explain off the top of my head. All of these sessions, by the way, will be archived on the YouTube channel, on the GAConf YouTube channel eventually. I don't know when that's going to be, but it'll likely be a little while yet. But I will let you definitely know when those videos are out. This was just a good session to follow. Oh yes, gamers first, blind second. That was the title that we ended up coming up with for our low vision panel. And I think it went very well. Everyone had such good points. We had Megan and Steve and myself. We were all talking about, and Steve Saylor led the conversation. And then, he would talk about stuff, and then he would ask Megan or I different things. And it was just a really kind of neat way to go, because we started by introducing ourselves and our gaming background and how we got into accessibility and that kind of stuff. And that was fun to talk about and hear, everyone's different perspectives on that. And then he asked, like, okay, well, what are, getting the negativity out of the way first, what is the one game or what is the worst thing that you encounter that just really prevents you from enjoying a game? Or what is the game that you just absolutely just can't play for whatever reason? And my answer, I was like, I didn't have like a specific one in mind right away. I was kind of just like, oh crap, I really don't know. There's little aspects of games that I find frustrating to certain degrees, but I couldn't think of one just immediately. And then a couple seconds in, I'm like, oh, well, you know what? I'll mention the Yakuza games. I know I've mentioned those here too. Because the Yakuza games, I just did the playthrough for Shenmue. And the Yakuza games are basically a Japanese... It's basically the logical progression, or the spiritual successor to the Shenmue games. It's, totally different characters, but, you're playing this Yakuza guy, or Pete characters. You have the melee combat, you have just all kinds of little mini games and things that you can do. You can explore these, the city. Everything that I've seen about it just looks so cool, but the problem is the audio is only in Japanese. And especially for cutscenes and for times where the subtitles at the bottom of the screen, they'll auto advance, and if you can't read it that quickly, this is a story heavy game, as one would expect. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of open world gameplay that you can mess around with too, but largely the story is what's fascinating about those, because there's a whole bunch of those in that series out now. But they're all in Japanese, and if you can't read the subtitles well enough, you kind of miss out, or you can kind of try to play them, but you're going to be missing out on a good chunk of what people enjoy about that game. So I called out the Yakuza series on that one. Then they talked about, okay, well, on the other side, what are games that you recognize that do really well, or what do you like to play? And I mentioned Doom. I'm like, I still love Doom. It's my favorite game, the yada yada. I actually also called out a few other games. I said, I mentioned, because all the games nowadays are open world, or that just seems to be the way that everything is going. If it's not a game as a service, it's an open world game. So I really wanted to recognize like Saints Row 3 and 4 and Red Faction Guerrilla. I've talked about those. I've talked about, hey, I have in-world navigation. I don't have to look at that stupid mini-map. I also called out Left 4 Dead 1 and 2 because, I've talked about this on the channel as well, where, you have the visuals, the silhouettes of everything. You have the audio cues, not just the sound effects of each special infected, but you have the musical, the different musical themes for each thing. Like I said, I can tell that a boomer's coming just because of the music that I hear. And then of course at the end I had to call out Skullgirls for its just start to finish. Everything supports text to speech. The menus, the move lists, the dialogue, options, everything supports screen reader text to speech in that game. And I even called out Eagle Island for the accessibility video that the developer showed for that, because it's not out yet, but from the video I've seen, and I asked a couple of questions and things, you're going to want to watch the video when it comes out, because when I'm able to play this game, this is going to be something cool. Like Eagle Island just seems like it's going to be a really cool game. So we talked about, the good, the bad, and then we talked about like our wish lists. What are some things that we would wish developers would do? Or what would we like to see in games going forward? Of course, font clarity, be it through font size, contrast, font face. Don't make some weird stylized font that's really tough to read. But, I even said this as far as size goes. Think about what you think would be the maximum size that you would want to have, and go ahead and make it bigger, because even if it seems ridiculous to you, odds are somebody's going to find that very useful, and that someone might even be me, because my vision sucks. And so I definitely appreciate large print. But one of the other things that we all kind of came up with, especially the other two mentioned it even more than I did, was that especially now that games are starting to include these accessibility features, we want to know if you're going to bother to put them in, let the public know, advertise that shit, put it on Twitter, have it on your promotion page for the game, ask developers to cover, or ask games press to cover it in their articles and podcasts and videos. Because, even if you have the features there, if we don't know about them, it's like they don't exist. And one of the smart things that Shadow of the Tomb Raider did, and we called that out too, because not only did they include a wide variety of accessibility features, which I also covered on the channel, they announced them well before the game's release. So going in, we knew what to expect. We knew that, I can customize not only the difficulty, but I can make the text bigger. I have these other I can turn down up and down the difficulty of puzzles or combat or both. Different subtitle options, key bindings or control mappings. All that stuff we knew ahead of time. So it's like, I don't, if it was literally, I don't know if I can even play this game, because of what they advertised ahead of time, we knew. And it's like, I have to cover this and I want to play this because they included those features for us. So, having some place that we could go and look and see, okay, what games are coming out and what accessibility features are they going to include? So hopefully something will become of that. And finally, we talked about VR accessibility. All of us had played it a little bit in some form. Steve has a PlayStation VR. Of course, I have the Oculus Rift. And Megan, I don't remember which one she had tried. It might have been a PlayStation VR. She didn't have quite as much experience as the other two of us did. But we all found a lot of the same things that I've been saying on the channel for a few years now. The main thing of, if you have 6 degrees of freedom, if you have 6 degrees of tracking, meaning you can lean in directions and look in directions, they artificially lock something at being a fixed distance away from you. So if it's like, we want this to be 5 feet away, and you lean in, it's going to still remain 5 feet away. You back up, it's still going to be 5 feet away. We talked about that, and I also did mention to these developers, I don't know, there really weren't that many VR developers in the audience to my knowledge, but I did mention my potential concerns about these standalone headsets that are coming, because right now some of the things that I do, being able to manage everything, my library, and installing, uninstalling, launching things, I can do on my PC. If I can't see anything and there's something in the headset, I can sometimes, stupid seat cleaner, hang on, get rid of this crap, go away. But if I can't see something under the headset, I can try to lift it up and look at the screen. Well, on a portable headset, if that's not mirrored to anything, that's not going to work. So it was a really fun session. We probably could have talked for another hour or two, get us on a roll. And it would have been, I kind of wish, it would have been interesting to see what, in a group setting, if that, even this session, if there would be some time for a Q&A. None of the sessions in GAConf because of the timing and everything, they didn't do any Q&A. But I think maybe for the panels, it might not be a bad idea to even allow for a little bit of that, if nothing else, just for that session, because in that particular session, you are talking to the gamers themselves. So if you're a developer and you say, well, if I'm developing this kind of a thing, and this is like, how would how would I do blah blah, or what would you think about blah blah blah, or like, it would be interesting to see what questions would come, in that kind of a setting. I mean, I know they had time to ask us individually, but like, just so that other people could hear developers asking questions that, maybe other developers wanted to know too, but just didn't ask. For the panel specifically, it might have been helpful to have a little bit of Q&A time. Then we had lunch, which is really pretty good. We had some build your own sandwiches and stuff, a bunch of stuff out there. We came back and we got to talk about road trip accessibility at events. So this was from Tara, really good speaker. Really enjoyed that session. She was into it. But this was really talking about, okay, you're going to showcase your game at a conference or an event, E3, PAX, GDC, whatever. And just the problems that arise. And it's not just the show floor. Like, it could be, everything starts from registration. Is the registration process accessible? If somebody needs a medical assistant to be with them, otherwise, like, if they don't have that, they could die. People being their assistants being denied access, and just different things in the venues. It was a really well presented and lots of great examples. Again, just definitely watch that session, especially if you were trying to plan an event. This is absolutely the session that you want to listen to, that you want to watch, planning an event, because there's a lot more than you would think to actually consider. Oh yes. Collapses, puzzles for people. This was I think my other favorite session. All of them were really good. But I don't remember what the other session was going to be. This was like a last minute switcheroo because something fell through. And I'm so glad this guy presented, because this is an indie developer who has been working on a game for like 6 years, and it's supposed to be coming out later this year. And it is a puzzle game. I'm not even sure exactly how it works. I'm going to look up some footage of it to see if there is any. But it's, some kind of a puzzle game. And what I loved about his presentation is just how the whole process of like finding out that, he would take it to shows as he was working on it, and then people would be disappointed because they couldn't play it for whatever reason. Oh, well, these colors don't work because somebody was colorblind, or I can't use the controller this way, or you want me to memorize with this whole pattern of what? And I guess I'm not exactly sure what it was, but he had some sort of a disability as well. And it really started hitting home to him. And another thing that he had said was like, this small team, I forget how many people he had on it, but no one wanted to bring it up until they really started getting into the thick of designing and then starting to really look at accessibility. And by doing that, they found out that it was like 80% of the development team had some sort of disability. Maybe it was an invisible disability. Maybe it was just something, they would try to hide. But once they opened up about it, it just went so much better. It's like, now we can actually, this works way better. Hold on just 1 second. Oh, a lot of talking last couple days. This session, when it comes out, absolutely watch it, because Collapsis, I mean, whether, I think the game sounds really cool from what little I understand about it, but even if I'm not super into it, I'm absolutely going to buy it because the amount of effort and passion that he put into this. I mean, it was toward the end, it was just really emotional too. He was funny because he's like, I had this whole, script of this is what we were going to do and this is why and blah, blah, kind of a more bulleted list kind of thing. And right before he did the presentation, he's like, having heard what I've heard so far today, I'm going to basically talk off the cuff a little bit more, and just tell it like it is. And it turned into this kind of more emotional, like this emotional experience. It was just really good. It was really good. Now, Collapses, this is the crazy thing. He's like, I want everybody to play this thing. It's like if somebody on whatever platform wants to play it, and if we can kind of make it happen somehow, toward the end, he's like, we're going to try to make it happen, because when we started developing, there was a whole bunch more consoles out back then. So, I mean, this thing's coming to, like, literally, Collapsis is coming to, like, PC, Xbox, Switch, PS4, Vita, Wii U, Ouya, of all things. I heard Ouya and went, what? I haven't heard the word Ouya in, like, 5 years. I don't even know if that's a thing anymore. There might have even been a couple more in there. I'm like, holy crap, man. Everyone's like, or one guy was like, Wii U, really? He's like, hey, if people want to play it there, we can do it. And if Nintendo will still let it on their shop, go for it. But yeah, Ouya. I didn't even know that was still a thing. I kind of wanted one just to say I had one. Because I think that thing disappeared really quick. But yes, check out that session when it comes out. Collapsis. This is their webpage here. I just brought it up a little bit. Wraith Games. Collapsus. Collapsus. There are a bunch of screenshots down here. So, I mean, it is some kind of like colored block puzzle game. And I don't know exactly how it works, but I guess, yeah, I mean, on some devices that support it, you can like tilt the screen and do all kinds of crazy stuff. And like there's tiles and colors and shapes, and I'm intrigued. I really would like to know more about this game. I wonder if it's iOS and Android too. That I don't remember if he said. I can see that being a good iPad game. Anywho, back to our schedule. Almost done here. What do we got here? Collapsis. More inclusive. Oh, okay. Yes. PlayFab Party. This is another Microsoft. So Microsoft was really into this conference. I mean, they had the Xbox controller, they had the Forza with Turn 10, they had this session, and this is where they were talking about both text-to-speech and speech-to-text for chat, for communication, and even toward the end they're talking about like on-the-fly game translation. So somebody could be talking like in Spanish, and then I don't know Spanish, so what I would hear would come back in English. And then I would speak in English and they could hear it in Spanish. And there was a lot more to it than that, but I mean, it was just interesting how deeply they go into both in text-to-speech, them reading aloud to you, and then speech-to-text where you're speaking and then giving, putting that out into computer speech. So that was kind of a really neat communication thing, especially as the CVAA has really come into effect in January here. And Europe is actually introducing something similar, apparently. I forget what that one is called, but that one's actually going to be doing some additional mandates. So that is absolutely going to be more of a thing. So even accessible communications in games is going to become a lot more accessible in the future. We had our final break. Then we came back and Bryce talked about the adaptive controller and the whole kind of history behind it, how it got started. I thought it was really funny that they used to call it, for whatever reason, they thought it was funny. They used to call it the Zach Morris. Anybody remember Saved by the Bell? The Zach Morris, for whatever reason. That was pretty funny. But again, it was just a really interesting look at the different ideas that they had and how they got other people involved. They worked with Able Gamers. They worked with other designers, and it was just a really, really cool session. And Bryce is a cool dude. Like I said, he was the guy that invited me when I got to do that Forza thing last spring, when I did that Skype meeting last spring about the Forza games. So yeah, great thing on the Xbox adaptive controller. What do we got here? Oh yes, so the last major session was using games in occupational therapy. It could be for physical dexterity, getting some of that back after, like, especially soldiers who come back from war, veterans that need to do some rehabilitation, and it might not even be physical. It could be like a mental thing. You get. They showed a clip of somebody just getting like this concussion damage. He didn't get hit by something except for like this big concussive wave of something exploding nearby. And it just really affected like some of his being able to process and remember and do certain tasks. And, so using even things, back in the Wii, when everyone was using Wii Bowling and Wii Fit and, Wii Sports and the balance board and all that kind of a thing. And then they were using things like Brain Age and Big Brain Academy. And then they started doing stuff with Kinect and, moving on to what the Switch could do, or, VR, what that could do. So, that was, I wasn't sure how interesting that was going to be going into it, but actually I thought it was actually quite interesting. Those were all the sessions. And then we had a short little wrap up. And then it was the Microsoft Mixer, or the Microsoft Reception. So basically, we left the auditorium and we went out kind of into our main lobby area and the little place outside where we had lunch in our breaks. And yeah, they had some food, they had some alcohol, they had some beverages. And they even opened up to more people that just weren't in the GAConf sessions. And yeah, like I said, it was from like 6 o'clock to 10 o'clock. And for a while, it was packed. And I got to meet so many people there, you guys. Like, I can't remember all the people that I met. It was crazy. It was funny because, the breaks were actually fairly long. They were about a half an hour or so, give or take. And, this was, again, because a lot of people were getting together. They were seeing the sessions, but then the whole point was like, oh, let's get together as developers and talk about some of the stuff that we had heard about or what we're doing. And the morning one, I didn't, I talked to a couple people, but, it was just kind of wandering around, just, casual conversation. And Ian told me specifically, he's like, the reason that when because I forgot to mention, Ian and Tara really are the main crew that really were behind putting together this game accessibility conference in general. But one of the things that they decided was that, like, let's have these panels every, since we're going to have a panel of gamers every GAConf session or every GAConf year, let's have that right before lunch, because that way they hear about all this stuff firsthand from gamers themselves. Then they go off to lunch where everyone is being social and can chat. They can just, boom, right away come up to us or, and be like, oh, we have so many questions and we would like to be able to ask you questions or talk to you or get your contact information, make some connections. And it was great because right after our session, we didn't go to lunch right away. We took a little bit of a later, we had maybe almost an hour, 45 minutes or so for lunch. And, we stayed in the we stayed in the room there and talked to a few people for quite a little while, because there were people that were interested in, getting our business cards. I'm so glad I made those up and brought them, because I gave quite a few away. I still have tons left, but I did give quite a few away. And like, so lunch and then the afternoon break, and even especially the reception at the end there, I talked to so many interesting people. Like I said, I think Turn 10 and Microsoft, like I met three different people who work on Forza. I met people, I actually talked to somebody who worked on Minecraft. They're doing, I think, more of like the Windows ones, like, but they have connections with the Java ones a lot, the Java group a lot, which is, the traditional one is the original is the Java version that I've been playing. And there's some really rad stuff that I'm going to be wanting to cover on the channel with that. There's the last two snapshots have included, there's getting to be even some text-to-speech in Minecraft. So I'm going to be taking a look at that, and I kind of got a hint of some other things that are to come. So I will definitely be returning to Minecraft to some capacity in the fairly near future, so I talked to somebody there. I talked to people at Ubisoft. I talked to people. I actually, and the final question I forgot to mention, it was funny. Right before we left our panel, Steve goes, so if there's anyone in the audience, there's any one company, this is just kind of a final thing that he's like, oh, that was such a good idea afterward. He goes, if there was a company that you wanted to talk to in the audience, what would it be? Who would you like to connect with? And I was like, oh, and I wanted to say Oculus, but I had talked to Ian earlier and he said that, I don't think there's going to be anyone at Oculus here today. And at first I kind of panicked and I couldn't think of one. I'm like, you know what? Let's do it. id and Bethesda, the Doom, Rage, Fallout, Elder Scrolls. And believe it or not, right after the session, lady from, I can't remember if she was from Bethesda or id, but I gave her my business card. So, and I do follow her. She follows me and I follow her on Twitter now. So I have a connection at Bethesda I don't remember if it's Bethesda or id specifically. But I talked to her for a couple minutes, and so yeah, I hope something becomes of that. As much of a fanatic I am for all their games, I've covered Fallout, I've covered Elder Scrolls, Doom, of course, Wolfenstein, hell yeah. But so there's that. I met students who were wanted to add accessibility to their games that they were kind of working on. There was a guy that wanted to do some audio games. He was working on an audio or like a rhythm game that could be played by sighted or blind people. There was a game that I covered on the channel several years ago, probably when it came out. Was it 2014 maybe? God, it's been a while. 2013, 2014. Remember, any of you longtime viewers, remember a game called That Dragon Cancer? Yeah. That game was something else, man. I mean, it was an emotional... You didn't see it so much in the video that I showed you, but later on in that game, man, it is such a sad story. But I'm walking around, and we start... I see... Joe, and so I'm talking to him, and he's talking to this other guy, and so we start talking. I give him my card, he gives me his card, and we're talking for a few minutes, and we just kind of got into it. It's like, oh, are you, he told me, oh, yeah, I'm a game developer, and I made a game. I'm like, oh, what game? He's like, oh, yeah, I made this game called That Dragon Cancer. I'm like, oh, God, okay. Remember, That Dragon Cancer was that game. It was the guy who made the father. He made it about his son Joel, who got cancer at, what was it, like a year or 2 years old? And they lost Joel really young, and the game was just about the whole kind of good, bad, and like just everything that happened with that. I'm like, oh wow, I totally played that game. I totally covered that on my channel. I said, man, that was an emotional experience. There were some of those areas that were really hard to play. But in doing so, I think you did a really cool thing. It felt like we kind of got to know Joel in what little time he had on this earth. It was just a really cool, because it was such a unique game. I'd never played anything like that game. And I was just talking to the developer. It was just like, oh wow, that was so that was just kind of a really unexpected kind of neat moment. And I had, like I said, I had so many great conversations. I have to mention Adrian, because I don't want to butcher your name, Adrian Kosminski. Hope I said that right. I've been talking to her online a little bit on Twitter and such, and we just had a couple of really great conversations last night about games and the accessibility in general, and even like consulting and so like I said, I may be working with her on a couple of asking. She offered to help me out with a couple of different things, and so I may take her up on that offer and see if we can, like I said, kind of expand what I'm doing, kind of grow my involvement with kind of game accessibility consulting, because I know it well enough now that people can actually start to treat me as I don't want to say an expert, but, someone that could help them. And, maybe even on a contract basis or something, like I said, I've done 95% of this, 99% of this just for free, but like I said, maybe turning this into at least a partial professional sort of a thing eventually. So who knows what'll happen? But it was a fun conversation. Like I said, I know I left out so many. Karen Stevens. I was sitting next to her the whole session. She's of course the EA Access, EA Accessible. Everyone's been talking to her about like the Madden and FIFA and UFC accessibility, that kind of thing. So yeah, I chatted with her a little bit. There's so many people I can't remember. I apologize if I don't remember and I didn't acknowledge you, but right at the very end of the social of the reception, I was walking around and Ian caught up to me. He's like, well, what did you think of the session? You glad you went down? I came down. I'm like, absolutely. I thought it was a blast. I learned a lot, and it was great meeting with so many people, hopefully making contacts that will pan out to something in the future. And he said, well, what was your favorite session, or what did you like? And I'm like, there's so many. I can't even process it right now. I kind of gave him one, but I wasn't sure. And it took me until really this morning to be like, there were a lot. I liked them all, but I think the one that really stood out, last night I said, yeah, the one that was on the one that Tara did was really cool. But this morning, no, like I said, the one that I think was just really unexpected and really great was the Collapsis session. This really down to earth, not a bunch of lists and this is why you should do it and this is blah, blah, blah. Just a really cool presentation. So I did DM him on Twitter this morning. I'm like, yeah, actually this is my answer. I have had a little more time to process things a little bit. So that is the Game Accessibility Conference 2019 in a nutshell. I know there are even more things that I missed. that was just the whole thing. I slept like garbage Sunday night, and so I was like, oh, this is going to be interesting. I know, just the time change and excited about the show and whatever. I was running on pure caffeine and adrenaline and whatever yesterday. So at some point, like, I crashed a little bit last night, but at some point I'm just going to crash hard. So, I'm doing okay still, but I think it's time to wind down because I have work tomorrow. Got to get back to the grind. But that is my experience at the Game Accessibility Conference, GAConf. Again, thank you to everybody who made it possible, to all the speakers, all the people that I met, all the developers that are taking an interest in accessibility. Don't be afraid to contact us. Hit us up on email, Twitter, YouTube comments. Find us. We'll try to help you figure things out. And again, if this results in more people following the channel or subscribing, great. I hope you find something helpful. I was actually approached by somebody last night at the reception. They said, "Are you that guy? Are you that BG?" He couldn't remember the initials. Like, "Are you that BGF guy?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm him." He's like, "Oh cool, I found your video. I'm trying to do this thing, and your videos were helpful." I'm like, "Awesome! That was so cool. That was great." But yeah, really fun few days. Totally worth it. But that's where we're going to wrap it up. That is the March update. I'm not even going to talk about the Apple stuff that sort of happened that I sort of halfway know about. Something about a new iPad and a new iPad mini or something. There'll be a event on the 25th. Maybe I'll lump it into there if I choose to do another video for that. I don't know. It's just busy, man. There's a lot of stuff going on. So plenty more to come. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Follow me on Twitter at BGFH79. Follow me on Mixer, mixer.com/BGFH. You can also go to illegally-cited.com. That has links to a lot of my other projects that I've done or am doing, such as podcast episodes and such. A lot of stuff there, and I might add more to it here fairly soon. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you found it helpful or entertaining, and welcome to the subscribers. Hope you guys enjoy your visit here. And until next time, I'll chat with you guys again in the next one. Later.